Hi, everyone. Got breaking news for you. The Supreme Court has ruled that ex presidents do have a substantial amount of immunity when it comes to prosecutions. Now, this is just coming out, so I'm going to try to get some more information here. I'm going to share screen here so we can check out what they're saying here. Oh, let me get my thing set up here real quick, and I will show you what they're talking about. Let's go in with who we're going to go in with. Let's see what they're talking about here. So let's try listening on
Crazy,
this.
because they were
See what
coming in
happens.
full bore on him with 4 criminal indictments, and it really looks like only the New York case, which has long been seen as the weakest case long term. I know there's a conviction, and people say, well, it's not weak if you get convicted, but on appeal, there's a real sense that this was bogus, right? And so we shall see. Neither of us are lawyers, but we have eyes and ears and brains, and this was a kangaroo court, as we've said, right? But what about the classified documents case, Bianca? If the Supreme Court is now saying that you have absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts. So if Donald Trump hid documents after he was president at Mar-a-Lago, you can see obviously the Jack Smith, the special counsel, saying, no, these were not official acts. He was a former president. But Donald Trump's lawyers, again, will argue that they maybe were in the process of declassifying these documents when he was president, that they had an intention to do X or Y official acts, which declassifying documents are core constitutional powers, as the high court says. So there may be some ambiguity there in the classified documents case as well. So the ramifications are huge.
And we all know Obama had documents. They were like, we're going to digitize them. They held on to documents for 6 years. There's no reason that the National Archives, which is supposed to be apolitical, was supposed to ramp it up like this. They were, as you just pointed out, they were having discussions about what to go back with, what to not. But, you know, what even muddies the case there is if Jack Smith and his prosecutors, as Judge Eileen Cannon was looking into in her pretrial hearings, that they had falsified possibly an affidavit to go into Mar-a-Lago. If there was some monkey business, even with the indictment where they put some, you know, she had to remove a paragraph from that indictment because they didn't charge him with something that they're talking about. So tainting the jury, a speaking indictment, really not speaking to just the facts of the case, the letter of the law. There are so many questions about the way this was done. And I think it speaks to the fact that it probably was done in a way just to go after somebody. If he wasn't running for president, would they really be concerned about these boxes at Mar-a-Lago? You know, I mean, it all points back to the timing of all of this, like the Bragg case. So you're right. I think that, you know, official acts and why they allowed some other presidents to leave office for years and negotiate and talk, and they still don't have the digitized copy from Obama. But if your last name is Donald Trump, you're treated differently under the law, whether it be in New York, whether it be in federal, and here we are. And again, I think it is a momentous day here as we see, the presidential immunity is absolute according to the Supreme Court if it's an official act. I think Donald Trump will be able to talk to his attorneys and say, listen, this is why we did what we did. And we didn't even get into how they got this case was piercing the attorney-client privilege by going to notes that Donald Trump had with Evan Corcoran, his attorney, when he's talking, that every American has a right to sit with their attorney and speak. That is a right you have. His rights have been stripped in so many ways. And I think the Supreme Court kind of felt that way. And that's why we're seeing this ruling at least somewhat beneficial to the Trump team today. That's my gut on this.
Yes, I think you're right. And I think there's 2 other points that did come to mind that you can see in our banners, that as you read down in this opinion by the Supreme Court, this decision, they're also kicking some pieces of the Trump case back to the lower court, as we all anticipated. And I think that would fit into what you and I have been talking about. What would they be kicking back? Well, they'd be saying, okay, you got to figure out. The Supreme Court is just ruling on the broad brush here, the 30,000 feet on absolute immunity for official acts. Now you, the lower court, back and forth with the Trump legal team and Jack Smith and his team, have to figure out, exactly what was official and not official for Donald Trump. And again, what does that mean? That means weeks, months of delay. It means Jack Smith's case is very unlikely to come before the election. And I just want to say one other quick thing. Is that I just noticed while you were talking that on Truth Social, Donald Trump a few moments ago, short and sweet, all caps, big win for our Constitution and democracy, proud to be an American. Short and sweet. Sometimes it goes a little longer. I think we said it at the beginning, Bianca, it's a win for Donald Trump. He clearly sees it that way.
He does. He's still under a gag order from Judge Juan Merchan in some certain parts. So keeping it short and sweet, probably a good thing. But it really does point to what we're seeing here. Absolute immunity for official acts. I mean, that's the protection this role of whomever it is needs. I mean, I think we're just going down Jack Smith's rabbit trail. And I think that if it is kicked back, the 4-count indictment with conspiring to overturn his loss to President Joe Biden in 2020 presidential election, they can attack it many ways because, a lot of the stuff that Donald Trump was doing, Democrats have done before when we talk about, slate of electors, contesting elections. None of that is illegal. There's a real, I think, misconception by some people who have just been drinking the Kool-Aid and watching liberal media, big media, as you well know, Ed. I mean, half of them didn't know Joe Biden had cognitive issues. First and foremost, they were shocked. But I mean, the fact that a lot of the things that have been going on, we can point to other times in other elections where Democrats have done the same thing. So again, it all points into why now? Why did they bring these cases? If Donald Trump wasn't running, they would not have cared. It would have just let it lie and we would have moved on. But here we are because he decided to run for office. Jack Smith left the Hague. Here we go. Yeah. Matthew Colangelo leaves the DOJ, and we have all this, and now this is happening now. And so I think just to your point, just to put a finer point on it, is the timing of all of it. And now the timing is even worse for Jack Smith. If it wasn't before, coming up against an election, time's very short for them.
Absolutely. And you can see our live pictures that our team put together outside the court. There were banners. Trump is not above the law. You can see the left out there protesting. And I would say, in reading from part of the dissent from Justice Sotomayor, she claims that today's ruling, quote, reshapes the institution of the presidency and makes a mockery of the principle that no man is above the law, quote, gives former President Trump all the immunity he asked for and more because our Constitution does not shield a former president from answering for criminal and treasonous acts, she says. I dissent. Treason, she's now accusing Donald Trump of. That's insane. But let me just quickly say, Chief Justice Roberts answered that in his opinion. Our team put this together, and he says, as for the dissents, they strike a tone of chilling doom that is wholly disproportionate to what the court actually does today, concluding that immunity extends to official discussions between the president and his attorney general, and then remand to the lower courts to determine whether and to what extent Trump's remaining alleged conduct is entitled to immunity. So you hear the Chief Justice trying to strike a moderate tone, Bianca, and say, look, we're saying if it's an official act, of course, it doesn't increase presidential power to say that if he or she as president is talking to attorney general, it's an official act. And then we kick to the lower court what specifically happened in the Trump case. What are you saying in the indictment? That the high court is not going to deal with the nitty gritty on that. And you hear from the left, Sotomayor and two other liberals signed on, Kagan, I think, and Jackson, and basically say, there's gloom and doom. Donald Trump is above the law. That's not what the Supreme Court is saying. And you could just see, I think, not just the Donald Trump Truth Social post, Bianca, but the fact that the dissent is saying, oh my God, Donald Trump got this and more. That suggests a huge victory for Donald Trump because the left is kind of melting down about what happened.
Yeah, and they're using the same talking points. Look at this. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. Sotomayor ends on that note. Where else are we hearing the threat to democracy? I mean, the chamber, the echo is gotten over there. Exactly. But treasonous, that's an interesting term. I wonder, is Joe Biden treasonous if he's derelict of duty and not protecting our southern border? Is that treason if you're not upholding the oath to protect our borders as a nation? I mean, I wonder if that's treason. Wait. What about influence peddling? What about accepting money from foreign adversaries? Is that a treasonous act? I believe legal scholars can get into that, but I believe there's actually a law of the Constitution where those could be perceived as you are acting with treason to our country, a betrayal of the oath of the office. No, Ed?
Right. Well, yes, to your question, isn't that what is alleged by House Republicans in their impeachment inquiry? That Joe Biden and his family, through Hunter, his brother James, and others, were collecting money that was in their personal interest and not in the interest of the United States, and that they were then perhaps taking official action that would help other countries, Ukraine, Romania, China, communist China. I mean, that's a big part of what the House Republicans have uncovered with all the wire transfers and the LLC. So that will be fought out another day. But I think it gets back to what you and I were talking about a couple of moments ago about the debate last Thursday, which is that, you know, Donald Trump said, hey, look, this is about former presidents, not just me, but Biden, Obama. I mean, think about what happened in the oral arguments where Justice Kavanaugh, I believe, said, look, if you don't give presidents absolute immunity for official actions, Barack Obama could be prosecuted for drone strikes that killed innocent people. And by the way, you'll remember we've covered recent stories where Joe Biden ordered drone strikes in the Mideast and elsewhere that killed innocent people, that didn't hit their targets, didn't hit the terrorists. And so are you going to bring Joe Biden before some international criminal court for that? That's what the conservative Justice Kavanaugh was arguing. And I would say, look, think about all of this corruption around the Biden family. You already have Hunter Biden as a convicted felon over the gun issue in Delaware. He's facing another federal trial in September in California for not paying his federal taxes. I know he's not the president, but he's the presidential son. And in that testimony, we may find out that the money that Hunter Biden did not claim income taxes on, did not tell the IRS about, could have been money that came in because of business deals he did with his father, his uncle James. Who knows where this goes for Joe Biden? And so this is not just about Donald Trump. This is about the corruption of the Bidens as well.
Yeah, it truly is. And when you are seeing Roberts write that the dissents strike a tone of chilling doom.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it gets more grave than that. A chilling doom. That's how far apart, the dissents are from this decision here in the majority. I just think at this stage of the game too, Americans are not, they don't want to see the legal system. Should have never gotten to this, right? If there's an indictment, there's a crime. The fact that it's even going to this nation's highest court is that because it is ambiguous. It is something that is uncharted. And it's not just this case. It's every single case. The Bragg case, also novel theory, never been tested. Cobbling together statutes to fit a crime that you actually, there was no one, everyone passed. The FEC said there's no problem here with the elections thing. And then the statute goes on. I mean, all of this, because you see it so blatantly now, you don't actually have to be a lawyer. I mean, yes, some of the legal stuff, it's weedy and we'll go back to Chukon and what lower court and how will it get gummed up? Sure. But if you just go surface on this and you look at who it's being, targeted against, and, it's Donald Trump. And that right there, I think for Americans are going, okay, it's going against a man. If Biden has all these corruptions allegations, I think I would go after the person who's trying to win the office, because if Donald Trump wins, what does that mean for the future of Joe Biden and potential for his exposure, his son not, getting a pardon? I mean, they have a lot to lose on the Democratic side as well here too. But I think ultimately what is the biggest loss is that our government is being weaponized. And that is something that Americans cannot necessarily control. But we know these people who are in power certainly can, and they have chosen not to. They have chosen to go full throttle here, Ed. And that's a scary thing.
Yeah. And think about the rhetoric and how gloom and doom, when you talk about the dissent in this case, the rhetoric just in the last 24 hours from the sitting vice president, Kamala Harris, in the middle of this storm for Democrats. She's charging falsely on X and other social media, and they're putting out ads and the rest of it saying Donald Trump wants to ban abortion nationwide. He wants a national ban on abortion. It's a lie. He said the exact opposite in last Thursday's debate. As you heard, I heard, and the whole country heard. He's talked extensively about how it's up to each state now that Roe v. Wade was overturned. Right. So they're just going to lie about these things. And you talk about weaponizing government. I would consider that part of weaponization, not just official acts of indicting your chief political rival in Donald Trump, but also just flat out using the auspices of the federal government to lie about what your chief political opponent is saying over and over and over again. So look, there's a big storm here. if you just take a step back and think about the last 4 or 5 days of that debate and the aftermath, and yesterday at Camp David, where the sitting president of the United States is sitting with his family, what do we do now? Because donors are mad, campaign donors, and they're throwing some of their staffers under the bus and saying they didn't prepare him well for the debate. And some are saying it should be a different
Blaming
candidate.
his schedule.
Yeah, and running and
which
saying,
is so light already.
He works better from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And if you do after that, he can't. All of this is crazy. And then now you go to the Supreme Court, and Donald Trump gets another victory after that big victory in the debate. This has been a bad 4 or 5 days for the Democrats. And I would argue that they're trying to hold up polls saying that this is still a toss-up race or whatnot. Let's let this breathe for a few days. I suspect there's going to be some polling that suggests that there's deep problems for the Democrats. I mean, just look at Governor Whitmer in Michigan, and maybe she's got ulterior motives because she might end up being the candidate for the Democrats. We'll see. But there's a Politico story saying that she told the White House that they can't win Michigan anymore, her home state, that Michigan is gone. And you know this, Bianca, that there's this blue wall that they talk about, that the only way Joe Biden can get to 270 electoral votes is by winning Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. If the sitting governor, Democrat Whitmer, is saying Michigan's gone, he can't win. And now Donald Trump is riding high, not going to face some of these criminal charges because of this decision, not going to face more of these trials before the election. This is a monumental few days.
It is. And just to drill down on Michigan, too, the biggest diaspora of Muslims in Dearborn there. And Joe Biden has pandered to those radicals. We know that. And he's still going to lose Michigan. I mean, that's how bad it is. There's just everything for him is falling apart. But you're right. They want to stay in power. Hunter's there with the family over the weekend as they're trying to say that Joe won't. One of the interesting things that also came out, Ed, is that they're going to put Joe Biden out possibly more. Okay, well, good luck with that. I mean, if they were going to have him do more one-on-ones or more sit-downs, it's pretty crazy. Let's go out real quickly. We have Alana Austin at the Supreme Court with new details breaking right now. Let's listen in.
Are shielded from criminal immunity. And I'd like to get to this specific litmus test, if you will, about what the opinion said for the majority of the court. In Chief Justice John Roberts' opinion, it said that immunity is recognized extending to the outer perimeter, covering actions. These are the key words. So long as they are not manifestly or palpably beyond his authority. So it appears that will now be for the district court to determine which acts are private, which acts are considered under the official acts of a president. And it also said that the motive of a president should not be factored in as they go through this process. Chief Justice John Roberts also acknowledging that these are unprecedented questions and that this will be a difficult task for the courts. We are also learning that Trump's conversations with the acting attorney general and other Department of Justice officials that will also be shielded from criminal immunity. So Sean and Emma, we will continue parsing through this opinion, but we wanted to pull out a couple of those key details moving forward. Back to you.
All right. Thanks so much for doing so. Again, a lot to follow today. We'll be continuing to do so right here on Newsmax. Alana, thank you very much. Our next guest, Carrie Lake.
Pretty incredible, Ed.
Yeah, it is. And I'm just peeking at my phone to see what else is sort of coming in terms of reaction. And when you look at the New York Times website, there is a complication for Donald Trump in that Chief Justice Roberts suggests in the opinion that Donald Trump talking to his vice president about the Electoral College vote might not be entitled to immunity because Congress has legislated extensively to define the vice president's role, and the president plays no direct part in that process. Interesting. Chief Justice Roberts suggests a president talking to a vice president about casting a tie-breaking 51st vote in the Senate on legislation that is part of the White House's agenda is more likely to be immune for prosecution because that would be determined to be an official act. Again, it seems to hint to me that while there's a victory for Donald Trump overall, again, at the 30,000-foot view, on the details of some of his conversations with other government officials like the vice president, there appears to be a little more ambiguity from the Supreme Court about whether that's really an official act when they're talking about the electoral votes and their political situation. So again, Jack Smith is going to parse that, as you noted earlier, and try maybe to have, rejigger the indictment. But again, you start messing with the initial indictment, come up with something new. That's going to take weeks or months. And then the defense is going to have their chance to try to have a motion to dismiss and pick apart what Jack Smith does. Here we are on July 1st. The idea of the January 6th case coming before a jury in terms of a trial before November 5th in the election seems like a stretch. And I would add, let's not forget what the Supreme Court did late last week in the Fisher case by saying that the Biden DOJ overstepped its power in using a specific criminal statute to throw various J6ers into prison, that was improper. And now that's going to lead to various people being let out, various convictions being overturned. That also impacts the initial Jack Smith indictment against Donald Trump, because that same statute that they've now struck down for use in J6 matters, that was used against Donald Trump. So the entire case in the J6 matter by Special Counsel Jack Smith is really under a big cloud this morning. And that's, again, good news for Donald Trump.
Sorry about that, guys. How long does it take for this man to see what's been going on? And I'm talking about Biden. He's going to be held responsible for a lot of what he's done. And this just comes down to a point that they had to do it. Most of Trump's cases, yeah, sorry, John. It was me. My mic was muted still. But Trump is pretty much, almost all of his cases should be dropped. But you know the Democrats are going to fight every bit of this tooth and nail. That's just what they do. I'm waiting for somebody to say, to hell with the Supreme Court. We'll defy them, just like they did before when Roe v. Wade came out. That's what's going to happen. But Biden is not going to be immune to what he did as a vice president and when he wasn't a vice president. What he was just a senator. And the only thing he's going to be immune to is what's happening now because of this. And people aren't seeing that. This is more than just Donald Trump. This is every president ever done anything, because you know they've done stuff that we would be convicted for. And this just goes to protect all of them, which they should, because presidents have to do stuff that we would not want to do. So that's what's going to happen. Democrats make their own rules. Exactly, John. Because And we've heard that over and over again. And that's what's going to happen. And between now and tonight at 9 o'clock, when I go live again, there's going to be stuff come out. And I hope everybody joins me 9 p.m. for the Conservative Viewpoint, Eastern Standard Time. And we'll probably pretty much have a lot to talk about as far as this goes, because we're going to hear the Democrats crybaby whining and everything. And just like Pelosi did the other day, saying that Trump committed treason. Well, where the hell did that come from? Just like that Sotomayor or whatever the hell her name, that justice is, saying Trump committed treason. If you guys weren't on here to hear that part, what the hell's that? Where is it at? Where's any proof of that? She shouldn't be running her mouth if she doesn't have any proof. Nothing has come up in courts about this. So there's going to be a lot to come out between now and then. And we're going to have a lot to discuss. So if you guys got any questions on this now, Uniparty, NWO, New World, you're exactly right, Carrie. The Democrats are kind of crashing on their New World Order. And this is why November is so important. And by the time most of these cases come now, it's going to be after the election, because we're already into July. So we're less than about 4 months away now from the November election. And this has got to wake people up. I hope it does. I hope people will change their minds. They're the ones that think that Democrats are right. Democrats have been wrong on every aspect that they've been doing against Trump. And this is why we have to fight like hell to wake people up to see the truth. And the truth is, Trump did nothing wrong. This is just election interference, period. Exactly right. So if you guys got any questions or comments before I get going here, because this is about all we're going to hear right now until we hear all the crying and whining going on from these liberal idiots. So please join me tonight, 9 o'clock. We'll have this to discuss and everything on the Conservative Viewpoint. I'll be live on Wimpkin, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. And we will get this thing going again. So in the meantime, criminal injustice system. Exactly, John. It's coming out. And this shows the weaponization of the DOJ and every one of the alphabet agencies. And that's what Trump's got to start. Thanks, William. Hope you join tonight if you can, if you're not working or something. So please, everyone, join me tonight. We'll discuss this and more stuff that we got going on tonight. You don't want to miss the show tonight. We've got so much going on. I've got videos to show you and everything. So please join me tonight. So this has been the Country Conservative. That's me, Charlie. And Trump has been immune to most everything that he's done as president. So until 9 o'clock tonight, guys, I'll see you then.